Hey guys, how are you? I hope that you're doing fantastic today. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous Thursday. You're probably gonna hear some excitement across the street because we're right across the street from Korea and World Cup is on right now. Let's be honest, I've been probably watching, 3/4 of the games with Jack, who's been up nonstop watching every game. But right now, so excited. It is, hi Emily, how are you? It is a wonderful joy to be here with a friend here in Boise who is honestly one of my inspirators here locally, and I wanted to share him and what he's done honestly with the sport of triathlon in this community and how it will hopefully inspire you to do something amazing. So Erin Kreitz Shirey, Inspirator LIFE, coming to you from downtown Boise right now, right in our North End neighborhood. And I'm here with Antonio Gonzalez, who is the owner and founder and triathlete extraordinaire of Tri-Town. So
thanks, Erin, for having me.
No problem. So it's what's fun is Antonio doesn't know what he's really going to be getting into right now. So you guys give him some extra hearts when you do pop on and share some love. We just came back from Coeur d'Alene this last weekend where I did the 70.3 Ironman. Antonio was up there. He was the amazing gentleman who actually brought up race wheels for me and my bike. But I have a question for you. One, introduce yourself to everybody. Tell them who you are, where you're from. That'll jazz. This is so kick back. Don't worry. It's nothing formal. It's not Oprah style to where we're going to repeat this. And it's,
right, work through some life issues.
No, we're not working
that.
Nope. That's later.
Right on.
But yeah, so tell these guys who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction there, Erin. Antonio Gonzalez. And lived in Boise since I was 12. Family moved here from Chicago via San Jose, so kind of California like a lot of us around here. And I helped. I was a co-founder of a triathlon store just right down the street from where we're at, and we just have a really cool, funky niche business. We get to do a lot of really great things like work with athletes one-on-one, like in a coaching environment. We also sell bikes and wetsuits and all the gear that goes into really just swimming, biking, and running. We maintain that equipment. We go to a lot of races, and when we go to races, we often help athletes transport their gear to and from the race. It's a lot more convenient to drive the gear there than fly with it.
Very much so.
Yeah. And we also, when we're at these races, a couple of our staff are amazing photographers, so we take these stunning photos that I actually have some of you.
Do you really? Oh, I haven't seen them yet. I'm excited.
Yeah, we haven't quite. We only published a few so far, but we'll have a few hundred, to put out there, and they're just amazing. And so, that's kind of a real quick snapshot.
Okay, fantastic.
Where I'm at, yeah.
So, question for you, because when did you do your first triathlon?
So I did my first triathlon probably when I was 20.
Okay.
And I'm 35 now. You're
so old, Antonio.
Getting old. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Well, I'm starting to find myself. Say, especially some of the guys who work with us that may be as young as 18. And I'll be like, oh man, when I was your age, and it's just like catch myself saying that. And I'm like, I promise I would never be that guy.
Well, when Austin was talking about the year that he was born, I was dying. He's a sweet, amazing athlete.
Was it like 98 or something like that?
I think it was 99. Was it 98?
It was late.
How old is he?
That would put him around 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there. So.
Yeah, makes us feel very young. We are very young. Age is a number. Age is a number. I'm 7 years older than you. That looks like I'm 7 years younger.
You look great.
No. So you did your first triathlon at 20?
It was about 20, yeah. Okay. And I was in college at Boise State, and when in high school I was playing tennis, and I was really into rock climbing, and was having a great time with that, but was kind of ready for something else, and decided to run a marathon. And
why not, right? Like everyone's marathon.
Yeah, and it was I liked the process of training for it, but the race was great. But I also could tell like the monotony of it was going to wear on me, especially like being 19 or 20 and having ran a marathon and being like, oh, that was kind of brutal on the body.
Oh, it totally was.
Yeah. And by chance, when I was younger, I was on the swim team, and by chance I was a paper boy for like 8 years, and still was at that time in my life. I delivered hundreds of papers every day, and so I was kind of used to riding a bike, but it was a big clunky mountain bike, and so I decided to sign up for a triathlon, and it was out in Burley, Idaho, which is a couple hours from here, east, and kind of a farming community. But they have one of the biggest triathlons in Boise, or in Idaho. It's a couple thousand people.
Are you serious?
Yeah, there's like this Olympic tri. and the whole city comes out for it. It's like Coeur d'Alene, but in a farming community, and just an Olympic, and it's absolutely amazing, and a really great first-time triathlon if you haven't done one yet.
When is it?
Late July, usually last weekend of July.
Well, I think I'll be going to Burley.
You should, 100%. I mean, it got me hooked, and 15 years later, here I am still doing it.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, so I did the race, and I did pretty well. I think I was top 10 overall out of a couple thousand.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, like I got a knack for this, and I love the atmosphere, the engagement of all the athletes, like not only with each other, even during the race, but before and after. There's a lot of positivity in triathlon that I didn't find. I mean, it was definitely pretty strong in running as well.
Yeah.
But later on, when I got into road racing, bike racing,
It's so competitive.
very competitive, and the attitude of the riders is so different than in triathlon. So that kind of started me on this journey of learning as much as I could about the sport, and that led to a lot of things. I'm not sure how much you and your listeners want to get involved, but we can dive into that too.
Who's fun? Hey, Mike, how are you? You're going to be inspired. Mike, we're in Boise. I think that Shannon's talking about Boise a little bit. We're right in our fun neighborhood in Boise. Just saying, it's fun up here.
It's beautiful right now.
It is gorgeous right now. It is gorgeous. So, with getting started in triathlon, it's funny because my swim coach is the one when I was 16 who said, Erin, you run for fitness.
Yeah.
You are on the swim team, and I know that you ride your bike around. Why don't you do a triathlon? And it was interesting because I wasn't the fastest at the three sports, but you put them together, and I was able to be really competitive, and place. And it was so much fun to have that. I'm always a person. I can't help, the trainer in me is always there, guys. Where I'm always, good job, way to go, you can do it, as I'm going by. And some people, when I know who to say it to and who not to say it to, you kind of know by some athletes. But with it, what I wanted to highlight, which I think is so amazing, is that when you got into the sport and you chose to really go up with it, it got all of your focus and your attention, and you had the co-founder, but then the dream of really creating the triathlon community here. And what's interesting, when I moved to Boise, I was told by every other person, you have to go meet Antonio, and in part because the fact that the community, and that you've created this big community here in a city full of so many triathletes, one of the most amazing athletes, I have to say, of any city that I've lived in. And you were the community creator. So what was your goal initially with starting Tri-Town on your own? And what was your fear in that? And turning that fear into fuel to amp you up even more with the shop. Okay. And because the shop isn't just a shop; it's a whole, obviously, community driven.
Then, so before getting into that, if I can just back up a small step and mention that, like you mentioned, your ability as any one individual, like in swimming, biking, or running, maybe wasn't as great as it was once you combined all three. And I think that's a lot. There's a lot of people out there that are the same way. I found that, like, as an individual, I'm like very ADD, and my attention would kind of bounce around from a variety of things I really liked. Mm-hmm. And when you're younger and kind of being recommended to focus on just one sport or one thing, it's kind of hard if you happen to be excited about a lot of different things. Yeah. And that's just how I've always been. Like, I just have all these passions I love to kind of focus on at different times of the year or the week or the moment. And so triathlon actually allowed me to it actually was an asset to have that mentality and to kind of be that way versus maybe a detriment if you were more of a single sport athlete.
Which is what so many young kids are told to do, right? So they're told to be in sports, one sport, for your entire life, and you'll be so focused and dedicated from age 7 on, or 6 on. And so where it does allow you to do the different sports. And also when it comes to many runners that do have injuries, and I say that with the running component, I'll never forget my coach in college, my triathlon coach, who said the best thing is that you're not running every single day, that you're not swimming every single day, that you're not biking every single day, that your body has a chance to shift muscle groups that you're, with how you're working on. So the story.
So the story, your primary question then was about the founding of the store and how that became a bit of the...
You jumped in.
So, okay, let's dive into that a little bit. So
let's dive into it, guys. No pun intended.
I mean, we kind of, I guess in a way, depending on how you look at it, could be kind of like diving in, but it also was something, we opened the store when I was 27, and I've been thinking about it almost daily since I was about 20. Okay. So it was kind of like a 7-year goal, but very much not sure how to get there and not sure if it was the right time. I was probably a sophomore in college when I did my first triathlon, and around that, soon after, I was like, I think a tri-store would be really cool in Boise. And I had no idea where to start. I changed my major from construction management. I was on scholarship at the time to study that. I lost my scholarship.
I bet your parents love that.
We're super stoked, probably. Yeah. But I changed it to business, and then soon after, entrepreneurial management, trying to learn more about starting a business. I started working in bike shops to learn more about bikes. I got interested in bike fitting, which I was realizing was really important in triathlon, and realized nobody in the community knew anything about bike fitting, or at least for triathletes.
It's crazy when you think about that.
Yeah. That was a little, 15 years ago, and it was just, the first fitter I went to personally, he told me that I don't need aero bars on my bike, that I'll be fine without them, and that was when a moment I was like, okay,
wait, no,
he doesn't understand. I went to a triathlon with 2,000 people, and every single one of them had aero bars. I'm like, there must be something to this, and he was like, no, you'll be fine without them. And so that was like, okay, I need to learn more about bike fitting, and I moved to Detroit to work with a bike fitter for a few months out there.
And you were how old when you did it, though? Do you think about that?
I was 21, 22 then.
So that's 22 years old to fly to Detroit to go work with the bike fitter to get more knowledge and skill set. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was. I was definitely. My whole, almost every minute of my life was spent about thinking about triathlon, and not just the mechanical or the fitting aspect of it, but also the coaching and training side. I was training to be an elite triathlete, and working in shops, and starting to have people come in that would say, "Oh, you do tries," and you actually work in a bike shop and understand triathlon, and won't just make fun.
It's different than the regular. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And so we could identify on that. And I was myself training to be an elite triathlete, and soon realized that I was better at engaging athletes with the sport, and maybe even training and coaching athletes, than I was actually being an athlete. And also the sport is so competitive on the high end.
Yeah.
And so that kind of helped me focus more on maybe one day opening that shop. And by my 4th or 5th year in college, I realized that I wasn't learning anything about running a business, especially a small business. And I think my time in college was really important, but it was probably teaching me more how to be an employee, more so than just thinking for myself. And so I dropped out, and that was really hard on me and my folks. They didn't pay for my college, but it was, you never want to see your kid drop out of college.
Totally. Do you want to see them finish and walk through and get their degree and have that sense of accomplishment, that piece of paper in hand that you can never take away, right?
Totally, yeah.
The flip side, though, many people, many entrepreneurs.
I think so. I think if you really are if you're diving so deep into what you really love, that it's probably hard that an environment like a university is where it has to be so general that it probably can't really hit the core that you're trying to focus on if you're that focused already. And that's where I was. I wasn't focused on, being an accountant. So I was focusing on running a small business for a specific niche.
But what's interesting, sorry, just tag back to that, but the entrepreneurial management.
Yeah.
So entrepreneurial management, that's pretty impressive. Hey, Brittany, how are you doing? Entrepreneurial management, to where I bet more and more universities, especially now, because being an entrepreneur, it's such a buzz phrase right now,
totally,
right?
Yeah.
But to where Jack has talked about that, because his degree is business.
Oh, sure.
And my degree is kinesiology. I've had my own business since I was 28 years old.
Yeah.
And it's always been learned by doing, right? Just jump in with both feet and learn along the way. And with different skill sets that he did help me with, but I also just had to dig in, learn what's the best way, and make mistakes along the journey. However, know that there's a different path always to lead to that destination.
Right.
So with shifting out of school and then digging right on into the store, to the focus of having the store.
Right.
So what were the steps right there? Because this is good to think about, you guys. Many people, when they start their businesses, they on the Inspirator mindset, and I work with so many entrepreneurs, right, as a personal trainer, but then an Inspirator coach, working with these entrepreneurs to train from the inside out. And many of them think they have to spend thousands of dollars on X course or this course, and that's going to be the magic ticket for them to create this amazing business. But that's not it. The magic ticket is you. You are the magic ticket. And so you've been the magic ticket for Tri-Town. And so as the next steps, what were your fears with, let me rephrase that. Did you have any fears with dropping out of school? Or did you not at all? You're just like, I know this is right for me.
Right. Dropping out of school, probably, yeah. I mean, my fear with dropping out of school was that if I didn't pursue what I said I was going to do, I knew it was really going to backfire.
Okay, totally.
Because if you're 35 without a college degree and like going applying for jobs, they're it's like, probably going to be tough to get your foot in the door. So the fear was, if this doesn't work out, it's going to be not so great.
It's fire your fanny though.
Yeah. My fear, getting out of school was when I left school, it was okay. I'm going to work really hard in the shop environment, learning how I can make this happen. I did start a small coaching business where I coached athletes to train for the first half Ironman, and I started to realize then, while working at that bike shop, that those athletes I coached.
Sorry guys, it is pretty loud.
Sorry about that. Those athletes I coached would often come and shop at the bike shop I worked at. And even though they had no prior connection to it, they just knew I worked there and they could talk to me about bikes. And so I was like, okay, there's a connection there between coaching and retail.
Well, you're a people person.
Yeah, it's pretty easy for me to talk to people most of the time. So, but then honestly, like when we finally got to that point where we were opening the shop, that was probably 4 or so years after the fact, I realized once I got into it that I was more scared of opening it than I should have been.
Okay.
And that was really a big eye-opening moment for me. Once we got into the process of opening a business, figuring everything out, getting your permits lined up, buying some inventory basics and just making phone calls, you realize that you get so occupied with just getting things done that need to be done that you don't have time to be scared anymore.
Yep.
And often, I'm not saying that you shouldn't plan because you should always think things through, but there's a point of planning where you're like, okay, I've planned enough. It's time to take action.
Yeah.
And then the actions that you're taking often dictate what further actions you need to follow. You can overthink the heck out of a certain aspect of your business, but once you get into it, you may be like, oh, that wasn't important at all.
Totally.
And you just wasted all that time. Often once you get the business going, you kind of follow the dollar, but you also follow what the customers are saying. And you're like, okay, this is clearly what I need to devote my time and attention to.
And that's being a good business owner though too, and a good entrepreneur. Hey Kelly, how are you? So happy to have you here. So it is, but being a good business person or a good person in general, is listening, right? And by the way, I haven't done, they're generally done, as you guys know, with Inspirator Life with somebody on a different city, and so I thought it'd be fun to do it together.
Cool.
But what's funny is that the noise, guys. I didn't think that 13th Ave would be as noisy with the house. I'm sorry about that. But what I say is it's the listening to your clientele, listening to what they want, listening to what's inspiring them, listening to what their needs are. And many people, they forget to listen. They just do, and they forget to listen, and realizing how important it is for you to listen to your customer base, how you to listen to what their needs are. And that's being a good business owner though. That's being a good coach too, because you've got that coach mentality always. You're such a brilliant coach. And so what you're doing though also within your shop is going to automatically inspire your athletes to perform better because you're doing all of this for them.
One of my favorite quotes is, nobody cares what you know until they know how much you care. And
who says that?
I believe the gentleman.
Well, you said Antonio says that.
It's not original. I can't take credit for it. I believe the gentleman I got it from was named Ben Hardy, and he's kind of works in like inspirational messaging and things like that.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah, and nobody cares what you know until how much you care.
It's so true. So true.
And I tell a lot of the guys that work for us that, the key to selling anything is just asking really good questions. And like when I go into a retail environment, and if I say, hey, I'm looking for a bike, and if they start showing me bikes right away, like most everyone will start shutting down at that point. They should have. If you walk into a store and say, hey, I want to buy a bike, like the first question should be, awesome, like tell me what type of biking do you like to do? Tell me about what your goals are.
What are your goals?
Yeah, what are your goals? Like, have you owned a bike already? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What do your friends ride? So if you happen to work in sales, learn how to ask great questions. and if you don't, just for people to find you interesting, you know, like you ask great, amazing questions.
Oh, thank you.
And that makes you very
engaging.
Good
question
asker. Yeah. So yeah, asking good questions and just being genuinely interested in people.
So what's funny is you were 27 when you started. I was 28 when I started my first business. And once you have that, though, guys, you never go back. I should say never go back. For many people that own their own business, as you keep thinking of ideas, you keep thinking about it growing and growing and growing, you can't help but want to keep in that field and expanding it. Even as you said, with helping the photographer being at a race and then providing those pictures just because they know that you're there, that's pretty special versus paying for, was it $30 for your one picture, for each race picture?
And ours are way
crazy.
better.
It's so crazy. And so, but I have a question for you when it comes to owning a shop. How has, because part of being an inspirator, right, is an inspiration motivator in one, and I told the story about Emerson coming up with that word for yourself, and how would you find in the shop who are your inspirators in the community, and who do you think that you're an inspirator to in the community?
Ooh, okay.
I know, good question. And take off your glasses so people can see your eyes.
I'm sorry.
You put your glasses on, like, Antonio, nobody can see your eyes right now.
Sorry about that. Sorry. I go outside and by default I start throwing them on.
Totally.
So, for me personally, who I find inspiration from, I don't necessarily, off the top of my head, I didn't prepare for this question, but I almost find it almost in anybody that I find is really committed to their cause or their purpose. And even if sometimes I don't agree with what they're doing, if I see like they're committed to learning everything they can, to improving their process, and just going all in. And I've seen that sometimes in my employees, like ones that just, like Travis, who we both know, who, I mean, he just wants to learn everything right now there is to know about triathlon. And that reminds me of myself a little bit, but also I'm like, good for you for diving all in. You know, people definitely, I have a lot of people in the business world that I take a lot of inspiration from, who I've seen have been, you know, made some really wise choices maybe, and they'll be the first to say it's probably luck, you know. Somebody who has done really well but is very humble.
It's energetic
really,
luck, though. Like, you know, like what you put out there, you will receive. And so if you put out there negative energy, guess what? You're not going to get good stuff coming back towards you. So it's not always luck. It's also what you put out there continuously day after day after day. That may feel like luck, but if you're thinking positively, this will happen. I know this is going to happen. I have faith this is going to happen. It's not just luck. It's also that mindset every single day. So I didn't mean to stop you.
Enthusiasm and like resilience is so valuable in almost any aspect of life. You know, just being willing to show up every single day, even if you're getting your butt kicked, whether it be at a workout, a group workout, or at work, you know, or if you're trying to learn a new skill, just be comfortable being uncomfortable, getting crushed, figuring out, because if you stick with it, you probably won't always be on the other side of the table. You know? You start to be the person that are like, man, Erin's the one laying it down, crushing it now.
Totally, again. I'll be back there again.
And if you can stay enthusiastic about it, I mean, it makes it
so different,
so much easier, you know. So so I find it almost anywhere, you know. My wife many times inspires me. She's one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life, and it's amazing. So
and you talked about her too with the bike race.
Oh yeah,
share this story, guys. This is amazing. Well, not her crushing part, but this is an amazing story though, because here's the thing with triathlons is that many people, and then we'll answer to who you think you're an inspirator to, because I know that you are to many. Austin, he's one right there. But when it comes to triathlons, what's interesting is the fact that people tend to get intimidated by being an athlete, feeling that you have to be this perfect athlete, and in order to just get started, which isn't the case. One of my dear friends, Michelle, just got into the sport recently. I'm so excited for her. And she's now talking about trying to find a bike, so I was telling her how to find a bike, you know, and she is such an inspirator to me right now, because she's just going for it at age 45 is Michelle right now, but with 2 little boys, and she did her first race last year. She signed up for another one. She's doing a few this year, and she's so excited, this fear and the fuel to do it, and she's not an expert at any one sport. Of course, she ran. How many people have run, right? But then, hey, Eileen, how are you? Hopefully I'll see you in Boston for the retreat. And I love that because the fact that she just went for it.
Yeah.
And people would often see triathletes and think, oh, you've got all this together. Right. You know everything. You're an expert in cycling. You're an expert in running. You're an expert where it's not. It's learning continuously, like you said, putting that grit and getting that time in.
Yeah.
So your wife, though, what I love is you share that she's not naturally an athlete, but she works so hard. She's an athlete, but she works so hard. She's worked so hard to perfect her athleticism.
Yeah, she's had. My wife and I are like polar opposites morphologically. She's about 5'1", and
That's a great height.
Yeah, it's good. Nothing against that. And I'm 6'1", 6'2", and I'm just a string bean of a guy. And she's like, she should be like a power lifter. She's all muscle, and she's super solid, and I hope she knows that's a compliment through and through.
It's such a compliment.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
And then when it comes to endurance sports, I would say like genetically, like my body and everything about me was like made for that. And then she was meant more for like CrossFit, you know. And so when she rides a bike, like she has to be so dedicated to the process, to the training, building day after day, week after week. And then I have historically been able to kind of wing it sometimes, and I've done it sometimes, and it's worked out really well. And so a couple weeks ago, she and I were both kind of training for this 100-mile time trial, and it goes through lots of climbing over 2 major mountain passes.
Hey Jen, how are you?
And go over these 2 major mountain passes, and she asked me to coach her, and I wrote a pretty basic training program for her, and I wasn't very consistent with it, wasn't always updating it, and that's what husbands sometimes,
it's like the
bad husbands do sometimes,
Well, it's like the contractor with her own house always needs fixing, right? So if you put a training plan for her, she's your wife, she's home, so you're kind of going, don't you just know what's in my head right now and you can remember everything or know everything, right?
One time I forgot to update her schedule, and she was like, hey man, I don't have any workouts, and I was like, oh, paying customers come first, and she's like, I am a paying customer. Ways I'll never understand. And so that was a mistake, lesson learned. And so she's so dedicated. She worked out, hit 5-6 bike rides a week. And then when the race came out, and I was doing like 1 or 2 bike rides a week. Excuse me. Hello there. Nice bike, by the way.
You know what? Yeah, it's a little nicer now.
There you go. Enjoy it. Yeah. So the bike race starts, and she started 9 minutes ahead of me. And you start on this big climb, like 13-mile climb. And, I was a little overly confident, and she heads off nice and steady. And I'm like, I'll see if I can catch her by the top of this first climb. And I almost do. She's like 1 minute ahead of me at the top. And my brother-in-law, who was giving me water bottles at the top and stuff, he's like, yeah, she's just right up there. You'll catch her. Yeah, it took me like 20 to 30 miles to finally make up that last minute. And I finally catch on, and she's like, oh, hey, babe, like, hey, do you want to take a pull? And I'm like, nope. And she proceeded to pull me the next 30 some odd miles. So we're like mile 70 now, and every time I would try to come to the front, like I would notice our speeds would slow down, and I'm just bonked out and dying and totally unprepared. My longest ride of the year was 35 miles, and I just hadn't done the work, but she had. And so there's another major mountain pass to climb now at mile 70 of this race.
And you're like, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, you should go. Like, you don't, like, I am holding you back. And she did, and she took 3rd overall. And
amazing.
Yeah, she did really well, and she just had an amazing time. And I jumped into a car at mile 70 and started drinking beers. and I was very happy with that. And I doubled my longest ride of the year. And it was a great lesson that if you do the work, you'll typically get the results. And that is one thing I've learned in racing and training in particular, is that almost every race result I've had, that race, by the way, I had won twice before. So this was my 3rd time doing it, so it was a little disappointing to have to just bag it. But when you put in the time and the work, and you do go through the process, typically the results will be there. And if you don't, if you wing it like I did, the result of that will be there too.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I was like, man, this is great, because it is incredibly fair. The people that do well typically did the work, and the people that don't do well, me in that case, typically shows.
Well, and it's also goal-wise to what the goals are for respective people. You know what
absolutely.
I mean? And so what's so beautiful with the online space is the fact that there is a community that you guys have went to Chi-Town, and an amazing triathlon coach, amazing store owner, entrepreneur, and all around inspirator, honestly. And our community is beyond in the triathlon world. I shared, I was told about you prior to coming here, and with every other person here recommended talking to you. And so, but what's interesting is that there's a group that in Try for Women, and hearing everybody's respective results. Like some women were just wanting to finish the race, right? And some women are wanting to finish a certain time. And I knew for myself what my time was, and for some other women, that would be so hard for them to get to that time. And I was curious, where's my base training? Where's my base? Because I knew I would finish. That was not a question. I wasn't thinking I wasn't going to finish unless, some crazy medical thing happened. But, or double flats or something, right?
Yeah.
But, knock on wood, that never happens. But I was just curious, where would I be without, what was my base training to get started for being consistent with my training? Does that make sense? Versus putting the speed work in. And so now it's so exciting to learn that, okay, so here's where I'm at, and to get back to that being in the top few, which I'm used to being. And it was nice to do a race, though, to where I didn't have the stress of thinking, oh my gosh, I have to be that person in front of me to be in the top 3. Because when you're fourth, it stinks, right? Except for at Ironman, it's 5.
Oh, the podium, I think, is 5D.
Yeah, most races it's 3D. And so it was actually nice to go to the bathroom, not stress over, oh my gosh, I have to go to the bathroom yet. Oh my gosh, that's going to pull me back. I won't be in, and so the reason I say that is because somebody that's watching might think, oh my gosh, I just want to do a triathlon, or I just want to do a bike race, and I'm not worried about the podium part. And for everyone, their goals are so respectively different. But it is so true that you put the time. Got the biker pit going on. But the reason too, though, is even with some of the people, when they don't get the physical results they want at the end, it's the mental game with it. So much of it, anybody can do anything they want. It's the mental game that goes with it, and that's where that practice day in and day out is what shows. Because if you were to have, even think the mental game with it at 70, you could have finished. You could have done 100 miles.
Oh, yeah.
But you wouldn't have been, having won it a couple times, you're like, I finished it, I'm this far back. You know, you can, the mental game, you totally can finish it physically. But at that point, you're like, I'm gonna call this for what it is, And so,
by the way, it's one of the cool things about triathlon is that you can have a race with a few thousand people, and there can be people that will only be happy if they win.
Totally.
There will be people that will be over the moon if they finish.
Yeah.
And there will be people that will be okay if they just get through the swim.
Yeah.
And they're like, honestly, if I can just get through this swim before the cutoff time, it'll be a victory.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's just like icing on the cake.
Totally.
And it's very rare that you can have an event where all of that can be happening on the same course and at the same time. That's pretty cool about triathlon.
It is. It really, really is. And so, okay, so Inspirators.
Yeah.
Who do you think that you're an inspirator to?
Oh man, so that's an interesting question, a good question. It's something that I hadn't even really considered until the last few years, where some people mentioned that hey, or other people that I've done interviews with or given talks to.
Yeah.
I never really thought of myself as that person, and so I'm trying to occasionally wrap my mind around maybe I could be viewed that way. So it's an honor. Thank you.
Oh,
huge honor for even ask me that. Probably the most obvious ones would be the people I work with. Mm-hmm. A lot of the guys that work at our shop and the girls that work at the shop, they have similar dreams and ambitions that I have and have had. And so to realize that, I'm kind of, in a way, I can set the example for them, and that very well may follow the actions I take and the steps I take and the example I set for them. But really, more than anything, I try not to worry too much about what other people think.
Totally.
and I'm more about just hey, this is the life I want to live. These are my values, and this is what I think is the right path. And stick to that. And if it inspires somebody along the way,
awesome.
I think it's great. And if it rubs some people wrong, then I'm okay with that too. And just having that internal value system, I think, is really strong. I think it's been a really good business practice. There's been many times in business where a mistake may have been made or something have happened that requires me to swallow my pride, or it cost me a lot of money, but I need to be upfront about it. And having those values in place and just saying this is the right thing to do has been huge. And
It's massive. It's massive.
I learned that lesson really early when we opened the shop. The prior person I worked for before we opened Tri-Town, when I told the owner that I was going to be opening a business less than a mile away from him, he said, fine, I don't want you to tell any customers or any of the staff. And so I just kept it to myself. And my last day of work was when the staff found out that I was leaving and opening a new store. And I remember like the day or two before I left, two customers bought really high-end triathlon bikes from that store. And then like the day later we opened Tri-Town. And those people are still really good customers today. But I remember right after we opened, they came in and they said, Antonio, I have a lot of respect for you for not mentioning that, like, if you just wait a week, you can buy a bike from me at the business. And it was like, over 10 grand in sales. But
ethically,
that was, it was a really important moment for me, just being like, you know what, that cost me some money, but they've ended up since then buying more bikes and telling people about that. And it was a really good lesson, to learn, early on in life.
Well, and that's a part too when it comes to competition. When it comes to, it's interesting, when I first started my business in Portland, there was actually a gal that would talk to me about how she was mad that my classes, she was a competitor.
Yeah.
Another school of fitness competitor, and that my classes were bigger than hers, and she actually said publicly about, I took down your flyers because I was mad and this, that, the other, and I was like, just do your magic, own your magic. And I was frustrated more than anything that she was so worried about what I was doing and worried about her own classes, because I was thinking about that's a detriment to her customers, her clients, which is such a camaraderie, it's community. And that's been such a beautiful part, to where the more that you just are worried about what your goals are, your big vision, the rest of it you don't even worry about,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you hear some people talking about competition and competitors when it comes to the work front. Isn't that great? Because you might not be the right fit for everybody, but then how you run your own business, it reflects upon the vibe, the energy, all of it. And so
one thing I think a lot about is the fact that I can't control other people's opinions or actions. But I can control my response to that. And like you mentioned in racing, some people won't be happy unless they win or land up on the podium. And with the athletes I coach, I tell them never to think about that, because the moment they do, their mind's already at the end.
Totally.
And they're not in that moment.
Totally.
And they can't, a world champion Olympian could show up.
Yeah.
They can't control that.
Nope.
They can't control if they get too flat.
You only control how you respond to it.
Exactly. That's the only thing you can do. And so with those athletes I work with, I'm like, hey, the only thing you should be thinking about is, am I giving each pedal stroke the best effort or the correct effort at this moment in time? Can I keep my head in this game right now? If I get a flat, great, I have a flat. What do I do? All right, well, I get off my bike. I take my wheel off. I start working through my repair kit. It's just step by step by step. And if you follow every step correctly, you'll get through things pretty efficiently, I think, and you keep your head in the game the whole time.
So those are the High School Musical. get your head in the game. We're always in the High School Musical in our house. But wait, what time is it right now? I was making sure we're on top of it. Okay, so, which is so spot on, and I always say as an inspirator, just be in the moment. For you to own your time, not have your time own you. And that's a big piece of it. To have you own your time, not have your time own you. And if you're so focused on the end result, you can't enjoy the moment that you're in, number one. Number two, you're more stressed about where you're going versus presently where you are. And then you miss out. And those are the big steps to grow from. Okay, so a couple last questions. One, health, work-life balance. What would be your 3 tips to give to anybody that owns a brick and mortar? Because owning a brick and mortar is different than owning business you can do from home. And so what though would be, all of it is owning your own business though. Let me tell you, you have to juggle that work-life balance. But how do you maintain, with working in the Tri Shop, how do you maintain your own fitness and that work-life balance part? What would you say would be 3 tips to give to anybody?
Sure, yeah. Sometimes I've done it really well, and other times I've done it poorly.
It's cycles.
Yeah,
but you keep going forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So, one, I think it should always be in the game. Like, you should always be thinking, like, it can't all be about work, or it can't always be about training. You always have to, it's always a bit of a juggling act. planning is huge. Like I see you have your journal out, which I love seeing that. And I think one of the best practices is before I go to bed, I journal for just a few minutes about what my goals are for the next day.
I love it.
And half the time that inspires me to just get my bag loaded up, like get my gym bag ready, and that it's ready to go. So if the alarm goes off at 5 a.m., I'm actually getting out of bed and not hitting the snooze button 3 times in a row.
Yep.
And when it comes to exercise, if you have a busy life or if you run a business, if you've got that day job you have to be at, exercising in the morning to me is huge.
Non-negotiable.
It's like, hey, that 5 a.m. window is a very effective time, to work out, get an hour or 2 hours of exercise in. We'd be back home if you need to help get the kids out of bed or get going. And things tend to come up during the day that make it a lot harder for me personally to work out in the evenings. So if I don't get it done first thing in the morning, the likelihood of it happening at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night when we close is really low. And I'm usually pretty tired by then too.
You're worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also looking at how like my actions often affect the outcome. So like if I'm going to bed at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, it's going to make it really hard to wake up at 5.
Totally.
And then that means it's going to be really hard for me to work out on a regular basis. So, just saying, hey, like if I don't be in bed by 9 o'clock, I'm probably not going to be working out in the morning, or at least not having a quality session. And just prioritizing the things that are important to you. Like one of the first questions I ask athletes I'm about to coach is what are the top 5 most important things in their life? And if they're training for an Ironman, and if it's not in the top 5, if it can't be in the top 5, it's probably a bad idea. But I do expect family to be number 1, or if they don't have a family, then some type of engagement with the community or their friends. Work is probably going to be up there. But if like video gaming is up there and like going out binge drinking is up there, and then like somewhere down below this Ironman, I'm like, we may not want to do this. Yeah, we may want to rethink this.
We're not at the right time. Let's reprioritize.
Yeah. So just making sure it's the right time in your life to focus on a big, hairy goal, if it's Ironman or whatever it may be. And then just realizing that you don't have to be, like, not every workout has to be a knockout of the park,
And
sometimes
that, though, is so smart, guys. Not every workout has to be a knockout of the park. Because I would get that with so many clients over the years with boot camp. Oh, my gosh. Like, just show up.
Yeah,
just show up, do the first 5 minutes and get started, and then the magic can get going. And if it's not the best workout, don't worry about it. Some of the top runners say 10% of their runs are actually amazing runs.
Oh, yeah.
90% are the other ones,
Totally.
And that's part of it. You're consistent with doing it.
Right, absolutely. Consistent showing up. One thing I'm starting to think more about is being comfortable, like in a certain degree of suffering, just being tired when exercising. And I think sometimes like we feel like every workout does have to feel great, like I'm going to knock it out of the park. But especially like in triathlon, like when you get on the bike, you're already a little tired.
Yeah.
When you get to the run, you're really tired. And so just training in a state where you're like, yeah, I'm pretty tired.
Yeah. This morning, my swim workout stunk.
Yeah, you're like, but I can still do this.
Still did it, yeah.
And half the time you'll surprise yourself. You'll be like, oh, it wasn't so bad. And I try to think about just being comfortable with that. Like, part of the journey is learning how to suffer.
Yeah.
And being kind of good at it. And
That makes it
like,
sound so not good.
Right.
That makes it sound so
right.
Why do I want to do this?
Like, if I could have any superpower, it would be like, man, that guy can take a beating, And I think, like, in business, I've been that way.
But it's
like,
true, though, and that's but to where it isn't always going to be. It's not always going to be so delightful. It's not always going to be so, it's not always going to be so perfect, and that's so important because owning a business isn't always so perfect. Raising a family isn't always perfect. Just life isn't always going to be, somebody skipping down the street with daisies. However, it's powering through it and acknowledging, hey, it's not always going to be great, but I'm still here for this ride. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, I've got these goals and this bigger picture, and I'm still here for this ride. I'm still going to make this magic happen.
Yeah.
Even though at this moment, it kind of bites.
Yeah, totally. I'm being cool with that. Because on race day, it's gonna hurt.
Totally.
And if you've been there every day for like the last 365 days, you're like, okay,
yeah, I got
this is home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a good asset.
Oh, yay! Well, thank you for your day. Thank you for the time. I love it, buddy. Thank you. I know. So, you guys, if you're in Boise, or should say, when you come to Boise, and Kendall, if you're watching this, you can come to our neighborhood because I know that you're busy right now. But Antonio's shop is right here on 13th Avenue. You can find him online, Tri-Town, and he puts out weekly newsletter too that is great. It's got all these fantastic quotes in it. It always has just some good nuggets in it and resources. And if you're looking into doing triathlons or anything, you can actually work with the coaches at Tri-Town from all over, which is fantastic. So I invite you guys to do so because we've got a phenomenal team of coaches there. And yeah, I'm sure you might see him at some of the races that I'll be doing. Actually, you texted with me, so you might be doing Indian Wells too. We'll see.
Pretty sure I'll be down there.
Yeah, because we want to get out of Boise in wintertime. And there's some sunshine.
Yeah.
So if you want to do a fun half Ironman with us, we'll be at Indian Wells in, isn't that December?
Yeah.
Yeah, in December. Okay, guys, have a great one. And as always, remember you are your own inspirator. Bye.